Hello, and welcome to an intro to Anthro with two humans. I'm human number one, John McCray.
And I'm human number two, John Lehr.
And this is the podcast where we reassess what it means to be human. And the title of this episode is Remembrance of Things Past, Redux 2024, or the Nauseating Neurasthenia of Nostalgia.
Oh my God. Podbean is never going to allow this title.
Yeah.
I can say that right now.
We're nerding out this week. John, we're going to be talking about nostalgia. Sweet memories.
Oh. I don't have this is going to be great for me.
Really?
Because I can't remember a lot. I did the 90s there,
You erased your
myself.
hard drive.
I know.
So we'll try to recover it. Some of it may be in DOS in there, some embedded lost somewhere.
Yeah.
But we'll try to find those files.
Yeah. All right. Good.
But this episode actually comes from my wife, Mary, who said a few months ago, she said, you should do something on nostalgia.
Well, she's had a very strong hand in this podcast.
Right.
Thank God. Thank God somebody's at the till.
Yeah, but it's,
she's also in charge of helping us with we're trying to come up with, a few people have asked for socks, of course.
Right.
And t-shirts. We have our graphic with a t-shirt or a coffee cup. So she's been helping me with that.
Yeah. We'll get that up eventually, in case you want to buy some merch from us.
Yeah, and maybe we can then give it away for people, anyway. Yeah. We're working on it.
We're not in the merch business. Let's just say that. But, we're not really, I don't really know what sort of business we're
I was about to say, what business are we in again?
Yeah. But she, I don't know what prompted her, if she had read an article about nostalgia or what it was. It kind of made me think maybe I was reminiscing too much. Somebody says
she's like, go do that on your podcast.
Yeah, stop. Yeah. Don't do it here with me. Do it on your podcast.
You reminiscing. I mean, you're very emotional and sensitive.
Yeah.
But I don't know if we ever reminisce about our past. Not that much anyway.
We tell stories from.
Yeah, that's true.
This podcast is actually a lot of stories.
Yeah.
So maybe that's what she was talking about. But, at some point or another, I think we all, as humans, feel nostalgia, which is like a sentimental longing for the past.
Yes. What's that about? Why is that in our system? Like, why do we do that?
I don't. We'll try to find out in this episode.
Okay.
The other thing, I mean, if we don't do it, then maybe we find other people who are feeling nostalgic.
Yes.
And I think nostalgia, depending on who is looking at it, or people have different feelings even about nostalgia itself. Some people find it very positive and reassuring.
Yes.
And some people find it a little annoying.
Yeah, it always, I guess it takes me towards regret. Like, did I,
oh, really?
When I go into, I'm not somebody who thinks about the past very much. I don't that much.
Yeah.
And I don't know why.
You just said the ship's moving forward.
I'm just like, we're sprinting to death. Let's focus on that.
Yeah, that's what we need on our t-shirt. That's what we'll sell on our t-shirt with our merch.
Sprint to death.
But you find a lot of people that do like go back to nostalgia. You might have a coworker or a relative who was in the army, for example, or in the military, and they'll often tell you stories about when they were in the military. I have a cousin who was stationed in Germany back in the 70s, and every time I see him, he tells me the same story about how he shot a wild boar with his M16. And it's a great story, but he tells it to me every single time. And I don't know, I love the story, but I don't know what do you do in those situations? If you've heard the story a million times?
Yeah, I remember you told me I'll say stuff like that, but that won't stop it. They'll just keep going anyway. Right. There are people who just have like 3 things to say and they want to say them.
Yeah.
I don't know why that is. Maybe they're nervous or something, or maybe it's a way to engage, or like I don't know. I say I'm not nostalgic, but then I just looked around my office, and
you got a lot of stuff.
All I have are pictures of my kids. Look at that one.
Right.
Remember her?
Yeah, that's cute.
Oh my God, that's going to college in 2 weeks.
Wow, look at that.
Look at that. Imagine if that was yours. You had to keep it alive.
That also is going on a t-shirt.
Oh God. I'd see her and she's so cute. God, I gotta make sure she has enough food.
Or maybe you might have a dad or a father-in-law that likes to tell stories about when they used to play football in high school. Or maybe when they were a successful businessman back in the 60s or 70s. My ex-father-in-law used to call those days, he was a successful businessman back in those days. He called them the days of red pants and white shoes. Because I guess that's what, like, if you were successful,
that's what you wore.
That's what you wore.
Yeah, you always looked like you were heading to play golf.
I know.
Those guys.
But he'd refer to those as days of red pants and white shoes. And then he'd always tell me stories about the people, famous people he'd met on flying first class back then. Because back then it really was like something special.
Yeah, right. You had those circular stairs up to the bar and stuff.
Yeah. Now all it is like you get on first and then everybody on the plane walks by you and glares at you about how much.
The funny thing about first class is it's entirely made up of 3 categories. 1, people who their work pays for it.
Yeah.
Okay. 2, people who are upgraded. And then the smallest group of people are people who've paid for it. That may be like 2 passengers out of but yet it doesn't matter. Even though most of them have, as soon as you upgrade, you sit there with that look on your face of like, you peasants. Like you immediately turn into a douche.
Even though I just turned in some points,
Right. Right.
Some decent points for it.
I got upgraded to first class recently because I travel a lot, so I've my status as a traveler for this airline is now I'm a silver or whatever the fuck it is. Anyway, and I've never gotten it ever. And it was this little 1-hour flight. Then suddenly I go up and she goes, your new seat is 2F. And I'm like, for this? This is what I worked so hard for?
This isn't the flight to Norway. This is just the flight from like Minneapolis to Chicago.
And I was so jet lagged, I slept through the whole thing. So it was just total a waste of money. Or waste of whatever.
When other people got on, did you make eye contact with them, or did you try to pretend like you were too busy, too important?
Well, that's what happens. Everybody turns into a douche. Like even me. I'm like smirking at people who were walking through, going, "Could you please get into your your chickens and your goats to the back, please? Thank you."
And sir, would you like another hot towel?
Yes. Yes, I would. I always do.
And then there's the nostalgia for like nostalgia tours and cruises where people can go and see the old bands that they used to listen to back in the 80s.
You know what the weirdest thing is? Kid Rock has a huge cruise.
Really?
Yeah, Kid Rock is huge. And apparently because he's like, he'll party with everybody. And, he's a man of the people. So he'll get down there and,
that's a good job.
Yeah.
That's a job we need.
Yeah, no shit. We should have a cruise. It'd be a rowboat.
It just takes you around the lake down the Ozarks. But I looked up, I saw the 80s cruise for 2025. There was an 80s cruise. Mm-hmm. And I went on their website, and the bands that are playing are Squeeze, Adam Ant, Sheila E., Men at Work, Andy Bell of Erasure, which I
don't know any of these. I mean, Adam Ant I kind of know, and Sheila E. I only know because she was the one who walked out of the "We Are the World."
Oh yeah, was she?
She was like, "This isn't." No.
Warrant is going to be on that.
Warrant,
the band
God.
Warrant.
See, these were terrible days for me as a music fan. The 80s. Yeah. It was just until grunge came around. I was just lost at sea.
Yeah. You were afloat. You were.
Nobody rocked. Nobody rocked. REM. I mean, come on.
This last one, Christopher Cross is going.
Oh, see what I mean? I was
thinking Christopher Cross is probably, he has so many crossovers. Like I don't remember people in the 80s really like getting into. I always think of him more 70s, but
yeah, well, he kept it going, that voice, that falsetto thing he had going.
He could probably go. He can cross over to like the yacht rock.
Yeah, you're right.
And the easy
in the Cayman Islands, he just hops off with his duffel bag and gets on a cruise heading back.
He hasn't touched dry land in years. You know what I mean? he's like the Kevin Costner movie Waterworld. You know,
boy,
Christopher Cross.
Another box office flop for Costner. He just had him. You know that one that he just came out with. The Western Horizon.
Yeah. Flopping. Is it?
I don't know what something smells in here. I don't know what. I haven't seen it, but man, America didn't like it. I know that much. You know, nothing. A big.
I feel like he's done that. He's not really stretching. He's just kind of like settling into a.
Well, apparently the rest of the world agrees with you because nobody went to it. They had a Horizon 2 in development already.
Oh, really?
And immediately got the kibosh. Nope.
Oh no. Oh no. All right. Well, there goes. I mean, I was hoping it would be successful, and then we'd have a quick draw movie.
Yeah,
like a quick draw miniseries.
God, no, not a chance. Costner just gobbled it all up.
All that Western money that was out there, he took it all.
He took it all,
and then it didn't go.
Wasted it.
MTV hosts will also be on this cruise, John. Mark Goodman, Ian Hunter, and Downtown Julie Brown.
Ooh, I've met Downtown Julie Brown. Yeah. I lowered her into a vat of leeches. Well, I didn't lower her, but I was with her while she was lowered when I hosted I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here.
Right.
And I think we've discussed this on the show, but leeches are heat sensitive.
Oh, God.
So when she got in them, they all went to the warmest parts of her body. And it was the worst.
Oh, God.
Oh, my God. I just wanted to kill myself.
Oh, God. Well, if we end up going, this isn't until February. Maybe you guys can bring that up while we're in the buffet line. I doubt you'll want to see me.
That was not a great memory for her.
While we're getting our shrimp and soft serve ice cream, we can bring that up to her.
They should let us on because we wouldn't drink. Yeah. They'd imagine all the alcohol money they'd save.
Well, it's funny you bring that because on the website, the cruise line says, quote, "This is a 7-day all-inclusive all-out 80s party of a lifetime," which kind of makes me think,
Jesus,
the 80s party it should have happened in the 80s, right?
Yeah.
It shouldn't have been like 40 years later.
Yeah.
But it says this is where the beats are hotter than Miami summer nights, and the vibes are as electric as the neon lights on Ocean Drive. Cruising style surrounded by the iconic sounds and styles that define the 80s. It's not just a party. It's a journey back in time to the era of Vice, where pastels, power suits, and pulsating beats ruled the scene.
Are they going to provide blow? Is that what they're saying?
It sounds
Everybody gets an 8-ball?
Yeah, they're going straight to Colombia. Straight to Colombia. It's from Miami to Colombia.
That is the worst drug in the world, but thank God. It was the only thing that got me through the 80s.
Just speed through. Just right through.
Let's get through it.
But at the end, they have in the exclamation point at the drinks included.
Whoa. Oh, Jesus.
I'm sure that's going to be.
No, we're not going on that. Oh, my God. That's.
I mean, they put that in the promo, like, you know, like just to get you on there. If all else fails, come on, because you can drink as much as you want on that boat.
All those landlubbers at sea just puking and. Remember when we went across the? I'm reminiscing.
I'm reminiscing. Yeah,
we went across the English Channel once together, the two of us.
Right.
And the bar wasn't open, so we found a coin operated beer bottle thing and got like 8 bottles. I feel like you found that.
Maybe.
I could be wrong.
That seems like something.
Anyway, we came. All I remember is seeing you with an armload of tall boys, high alcohol content English beer, and then as soon as it pulled out of where were we? Calais?
Well, I think we were in England at that point, so we were in Dover, I think.
Oh, that's right, Dover. As soon as it pulled out of Dover, all the bars opened.
Yeah,
and you and I got blasted.
Yeah, it was just a couple hours at sea. But we were.
Was that when we woke up with the vomit pond between us? So it had to be. It probably was me.
I remember stumbling down the stairs into France. I couldn't really. That's about all I remember after that. But
that was a horror. And at sea, remember we were at sea in the choppy water. Oh God, horrid, horrid.
That sentimental longing for the past is what you just experienced.
I just experienced it.
And then you have the nostalgia that certain political parties always come back to.
Make America great again.
Make America great again. Who like to talk about the good old days, back when men were men, women were women, before everything became so complicated. You know what I mean?
Back with Jim Crow and women not working.
They don't
not being able to vote.
I know. They it basically is a time when we didn't have bills, our parents took care of us.
Yeah.
And we didn't have to think too much. We could just hang out at the pool all day and drink Rondo or something. And basically back to when we were like 10 years old,
It's true. And or teenagers. My kids are like in that space right now.
Yeah.
They don't have a worry in their heads.
Right.
The two of them.
Right. And I think, when you talk about that period for people, when you actually ask somebody in the political movement, well, what period are you, what period exactly are you talking about? What's the good old days? It's like what you say. It's like the good old days. Not everybody thought those days were so great.
No. And there are no good old days. There, it's everything in hindsight is,
Right. And I think it's all subjective at that point. Like the reason why people can't nail it down is because they're all thinking about that time in preteen or so, and it's different for everybody.
Right. And I'm sure like with your father-in-law, if you go back to the time of red pants and white shoes, I'm sure there was some bad stuff going on. Too. If you really like dug in and said, okay, what were you doing again?
Right.
maybe some fraud.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Who knows what it was? Who knows what it was? I'm sure there was not for him, but at that time period, I'm sure sexual harassment in the office,
cheating on your spouse.
Yeah.
There was a lot of.
Not him.
No, not him. We're not talking about
I'm just
him.
saying, I'm talking about at that time period that was supposed to be so fantastic.
Right. Maybe you drove home drunk and hit somebody and never told anybody about it.
Everybody was driving around drunk.
Everybody was drunk.
But it's if nostalgia is your drug of choice, go ahead and crawl on the trip. Get on the cruise.
Exactly.
It's a drinks
anything
included.
to get you through the day.
Yeah. But I will say this though, especially in light of what happened at the Trump rally this weekend, that if you want to return to a time where everyone treated each other with civility, honor, and respect, we can do that right now. And that is, we just all start treating each other with civility, honor, and respect. We can begin that journey today. We don't need a time machine to go back in time.
Very, very nice thing to say.
Thank you.
You're a very nice man, even though I know underneath. Believe me, there's a rock there that you don't want to look under. But we're not talking about that.
Right.
We're not talking about that.
I'm just saying that we just need to take it down a notch.
Yeah, everybody. We do. Yeah.
Just take it down a notch.
Yeah.
And we need to live long enough so that we can look back at this time nostalgically as if it was perfect. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But going on, I just want to say that today's episode title, Remembrance of Things Past, Redux 2024 is a reference to Marcel Proust,
who you know extremely well.
Right.
You are a scholar. Did you major in Marcel Proust, or was it just like
it was French literature, but I really got into him. I really got into Proust.
Believe me, I know.
I was going to say.
I'm into him, and I've never read one thing he's ever said because of you telling me all about him.
Right. Well, I majored in French literature, and the number 3 Proustian scholar in the world at the time was teaching at KU, and I happened to be fall under his spell at the time. But Proust, his masterwork was called Remembrance of Things Past in English. That was the first English translation. Now it's more literally translated as In Search of Lost Time. In French, it's À la recherche du temps perdu.
Ooh, I love it. Remembrance of Things Past is a much better title, though.
Oh, I think so.
It's such a cool title.
Yeah. And that actually comes from C.K. Scott Moncrief, who wrote the English translation in 1922. And the book is all about the narrator's memories of his childhood and the people he has known throughout his entire life.
He sees one thing in the present, right? Or isn't there one thing and then that launches it all?
Well, yeah, he starts out in the present.
Yes.
With him going to sleep.
Right.
And then after that, it's all these memories start coming back. And then the whole novel.
What triggers it? Does he smell something or taste something or hear something?
Well, it gets to...
I thought there was one thing that triggers it, that starts it all.
Well, the most famous one, and it's called a Proustian moment. And that's where... a Proustian moment is where a sight or a sound or a smell or a taste takes you back. And you have just a rush of memories that come after that.
Okay.
And so the most famous Proustian moment is... probably when he eats a Madeleine with some tea. That's the one.
That's it. I remember you telling me about it.
Right. And really, if you think about, and we'll get to it, I'll quote it here. But in the movie Ratatouille,
yes,
if you remember at the end of that, where the food critic is getting ready, he's been served some ratatouille, which is kind of a simple dish,
right?
And he's like, oh, I can't believe you're serving me ratatouille. And then he takes a bite of it, and suddenly, remember in the movie, he's taken back to his childhood.
Yes.
He has all of these memories, and the food has taken him back to that time when he was a little kid. And that's basically what a Proustian moment. It was amazing to see in that movie that they had this Proustian moment that went back. Anyway, if Proust's book is all about how memory works and how lost memories are immediately and unconsciously unlocked. And sometimes, like we say, one memory will unlock another memory. And then pretty soon you just have a bunch of memories, a rush of memories.
Yes.
And
down a rabbit hole.
Right. And in the article titled The Proust Effect, Sense, Food, and Nostalgia, Jeffrey Green, Chelsea Reid, and others say that autobiographical memories activated by the senses, particularly smell and taste, can be among the most potent and influential that we experience.
See, this is why I don't reminisce, because I blew out. I have a very bad, I can't smell really.
Yeah.
I'm not great. I don't have a great sense of smell, and then because of that, I don't have a great sense of taste.
Yeah.
Like I love to put Tabasco on stuff because then I actually taste something.
Right.
So it's very muted. So I wonder if that's part of the reason I don't. I listened to metal growing up, so I can't hear great either. God, I'm a wreck.
Now that I think about it, do you ever feel anything? Something
I can
really
feel
soft fabric.
Except for my right pinky, as you know, I slice it off working at a fast food place, and the nerve never grew back. Now that I think about it, I'm like, I don't have any senses.
You're like
Wait a minute.
Sensory deprivation. No,
Oh, I love those. You ever done a tank?
No, tanks? I haven't done a tank.
Oh, I love that. Well, I did it. I only did it once, but I was on acid, so maybe I shouldn't. But you float in this black silent thing. But then all of a sudden, I'm floating in this tank, and then I guess I was slowly moving because my arm touched the side of the tank, and it freaked me out. But I was on acid.
Start splashing around in there.
Yeah, I was like, "Get me out of here!" And it's also
they can hear you in there, just muffled water splashing around, pounding on the side of it, trying to get out.
But it was great until then.
My sensory memories, I have, if I smell bread, or like my grandmother used to make cinnamon rolls with icing, like homemade icing.
Oh,
and you know how that dough is kind of, as it's rising, is a little sour smelling.
Yes.
And when I smell that, every once in a while I'll go into a bakery or somebody's making something, and that smell will take me back, and not only take me back to my grandparents' farm outside of Parsons, Kansas, but I'm literally on the steps looking up at my grandmother in the kitchen.
It's a moment that you remember.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So
when I smell poo, I think of all the diapering I did. Does that count for the kids?
That does count. Memory upon memory. That's a Prussian moment for you. The other one is when if I'm in it has to be a big city, but in winter, and it's kind of the cold air, but as you walk by certain businesses or the grates, you'll get a burst of heat.
Yes.
And if I walk by a bakery in a big city, it has to be a big city, and there's kind of that garbage smell of the city, but also the good smell of the bakery coming through.
Yes.
And kind of warm. I'm taken back to France.
Yes, I was going to say, that reminds me, you just saying that reminds me of Edinburgh when I was in for the festival. We would pass a bakery, but you'd also smell like sewage, I guess. It was like this weird. Yes, you're right. So maybe I had a sense of smell back then.
Right.
Well, I know why it went away. Went away because of the 80s and all the blow I did.
I know.
It's all coming full circle.
Yeah, we're coming back. There's going to be like an empty space on your transcript of your life.
I'm glad I don't remember the 80s.
Redacted. We'll have the whole 80s are going to be redacted.
I don't want any of it. Everybody's like, "Oh, but that was the magical time of pop music." I'm like, "Nah." Well, you can have it. Reagan and it was horrid. The only thing that was good was punk rock. That was the only.
That is true. That is true. I would say. But going back to in the beginning of Remembrance of Things Past, in the volume titled Du Côté de Chez Swan, or Swan's Way, this is what you're talking about. The narrator's in bed, sleeping, and right as he's falling asleep, his memory travels back to his childhood and the summers he spent at his great aunt's house in the village of Combray.
Just like you and your grandma.
And Proust says, as the narrator says, quote, "When a man is asleep, he has in a circle round him the chain of the hours, the sequence of the years, the order of the heavenly host. Instinctively, when he awakes, he looks to these and in an instant reads off his own position on the earth's surface and the time that has elapsed during his slumbers."
Whoa. Yeah. That's a guy who remembers stuff, too.
I know.
It's funny when you have friends who remember everything and bring up stuff. Like our friend Carlos.
Yeah.
He remembers everything.
Really?
Yeah. You didn't know that? Ask him.
I didn't know that about him.
He remembers everything. Because all over the time, I'm such a hyperbola. I'll change things and, and he'll get, no, it didn't happen like that. Really?
That sounds annoying. That sounds completely annoying.
I also have a friend who remembers every face she's ever seen. She's one of those super recognizers.
You've mentioned her.
We should have her on as a guest.
Yeah.
We got to get her on as a guest.
That also sounds annoying to me. Jesus.
Well, she says it is.
So anyway, as the narrator is laying there, and he doesn't go right back to sleep. He says, I did not attempt to go to sleep again at once, but you used to spend the greater part of the night recalling my life in the old days at Cambrai with my great aunt, at Baalbek, Paris, Doncières, Venice, and the rest, remembering again all the places and people I had known, what I had actually seen of them, and what others had told me.
What a nerd. Staying up all night inside his head. That's amazing. What a amazing brain, you know?
Well, it appealed to me in college, and it still appeals to me, because does it happen to you that when you're laying in bed, either right when you wake up, or maybe you wake up in the middle of the night, and all of these memories, these moments from your life start coming back to you?
God, no, I must be, I think I'm like brain dead or something. I'm a total idiot, aren't I?
We should hook you up to a heart monitor or something to see what's happening.
You know? No, yeah. I don't remember anything. I rarely remember a dream. Rarely. Really? I just close my eyes and I'm out, and I open my eyes and I'm up.
Oh, no. I have it. Moments will come up. It reminds me of, remember the magic 8-ball where you would ask it a question and then you shake it, and then through that kind of black fluid in there, it would come up and tell you something, an answer to you. That's how when I lay at night, maybe that's a reason why I don't like sleeping that much.
Wow. You're just too bright. You're just thinking too many things. See, in my life, it's good to be stupid. Really, I'm serious. It's just better for when you're just dumb like me. It's just life. You just skate along. You don't know.
You just unplug the machine.
Yeah. I'm barely even talking to you now.
It's an automatic reaction.
I'm basically in a coma. I'm right above a coma.
The same part of your nervous system that causes you to breathe is also moving your mouth right now. You know the thing that happens to me though, John? There are always a lot of embarrassing moments, like things I wish I had done differently in my past.
Like what?
I like relationships, things I had said or something.
Yeah, don't worry about it. If it's me, forget. It's fine. We're fine. Whatever it is you did.
So, next time you come up, I'll call you.
Well, I have a list. I've kept a list of things you did to me.
Oh, no. You don't remember, but you take really good, really good bookkeeper.
I have an Excel sheet on every friend. All the stuff they did.
Can you talk about in AA when you did your amends?
Yes.
And you were very serious about your amends.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And how was that? How was it? Can you talk about that, or you don't want to talk about that?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I absolutely. Yes, because those are things that you remember. Right. But even those, I remember talking to an ex-girlfriend.
Yeah.
And I said, because I said, is there anything I told her the things that I wanted to tell her. And then, you know, if possible, I mean, in this case, not likely, but a way to, maybe make it right, or to at least acknowledge in a, serious way. But then at the end I said, is there anything I left out? And she said, are you kidding?
Oh, that sounds
And then
awful.
she brought up this, oh my God.
Yeah.
And it was just, it's rough. Yeah. But man, was that that was like, I mean, that was the biggest spiritual, I mean, that was my favorite part of the process, was that. And, when I started, I thought, oh my God, I can never do that. And, can you imagine? It's such a nightmare thinking, oh my God, I'm going to go back to the people I've wronged.
Oh, yeah.
But it was actually just an amazing experience. Amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a different type. I mean, that nostalgia.
Yeah.
Is a different. It's a different.
That's so you can be released from it. You know, and hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not what all the people you're going to, they think you're doing it to get it off your chest. Yeah. And they think they're doing you a solid, and they are, by listening, but it's really about them. That's what it's really about. It's about giving them an opportunity to for me to acknowledge it and to hopefully, take it off them.
Yeah.
And then that's when it becomes or when it really ricochets. Like, I went to a school. I was a substitute teacher. I went to make an amends at this school in Chicago, and I was living in LA at the time. So this is years in my past.
Yeah.
And I wrote a letter to the school and I said, hey, I'm sober. I've done some things and I'm very much appreciated if you'd meet me so that I could discuss it. And of course, schools are filled with a bunch of liberal teachers. And I show up and they're like, oh my God, this is so amazing that you're doing this. They were so supportive. And they said, why don't you speak to some of the classes about being a writer in LA and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it was just a magical day, just an incredible day. Yeah. And so I'm leaving it feeling amazing. And then I pass by a school and I realize I had made amends to the wrong school.
Oh, no. So you had to do it. Oh, no.
The school I had made amends to was Ascot Elementary School.
Yeah.
And the school that I needed to make the amends to was Prescott Elementary School.
Oh, no.
And I'd screwed it up. And I was just standing out in front going, oh, no. And then I was like, fuck it. And I went in. And, a white dude without a kid can't just, can't just walk into a school. Because, we all know what white dudes do.
Right.
They kill mass killers.
Yeah.
And so, but I finally get in, I get into the office and now they don't know I haven't done any prep. And the woman's like, what? The woman, she's the secretary. It's filled with people, and she's like, what do you need? I'm like, I'm an alcoholic and I need to, what do you need? All right, wait over there. And so I wait over by the Xerox machine. And pretty soon the assistant principal, who's so busy, people, this is inner city Chicago school. This is like, and he's like, what do you need? And I'm like, well, I'm an alcoholic and I did this and I didn't show up. And he's like, okay, fine. Great. Thank you. Just keep doing what you're doing and stop drinking. And then, which is what most people say, just don't do it again and never, ever call me again.
Yeah.
But then he starts talking about his brother, and his brother is an alcoholic. Yeah. And I could tell that his brother has never tried to quit. And so speaking to somebody who's actually quit drinking was a magical experience for him. And he was just like, he just was like, how do you do it? And, how can I help him? It was amazing. It was amazing.
Yeah. Holy crap. That was like turn after turn after turn on that emotionally.
Yes.
Emotionally on that one.
Remembrance of drinking gone by.
But to have to do it twice.
Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy.
And I saw the second one. I was just like, I already did it. Do I really have to do it again? And that minute I said that, I was like, yes. Yeah. Because the whole thing's about integrity,
Yeah, I was going to say, like, you can't cheat on that once you start doing it. So.
No.
Can I just hire somebody and do it?
Yeah. Like, really? It's so minor. But it's the minor ones that you get the most out of, really.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Wow. So you mentioned already the scene, the famous Prussian moment in Remembrance of Things Past, when the narrator, he says, I raised to my lips a spoonful of the tea in which I had soaked a morsel of the cake. He's talking about a madeleine, which is like a little kind of cakey, not really a cookie. It's like a little biscuit, cakey biscuit.
Yum.
And he said, no sooner had the warm liquid mixed with the crumbs touched my palate than a shudder ran through me and I stopped, intent upon the extraordinary thing that was happening to me. An exquisite pleasure had invaded my senses, something isolated, detached, with no suggestion of its origin.
Awesome.
Yeah. And it's funny because he almost makes it seem like it's the madeleine itself, that almost like it's dropping acid or doing mushrooms.
Yes. Yes.
But it's really all happening within him. It's that taste that's taking him back.
Yes.
But
like
I know
your grandma in the
right
cinnamon rolls.
And when I used to go to a lot of Proustian parties, I know you'd see people
Proustian parties. Oh my God.
Believe me, I've been to a lot of them.
What do you do there? Just everybody remembers stuff?
Yeah, just talks about Proust, and you have Madeleine, and you have tea. You talk
that's
about
so nerdy and sweet.
It is nerdy and sweet, but you would see people who would, they'd all soak their Madeleines and take them, and then it was almost like watching people when they take mushrooms or when they drop out. You sit back as if you're expecting it to take off, and
no,
I'll tell
that's
you,
not. Yeah.
It won't happen. Madeleine is not like dropping acid.
Would you guys all dress up oldie timey like Proust? Would there be some of that?
Some people would.
God,
some people would.
Have got to delve into that. That is amazing. I've been to a juggling convention. Does that count?
That would.
We could do that too.
Were they wearing Renaissance gear? I mean, you worked at a Renaissance festival.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. Ooh, man, that was a moneymaker. Tell you, I made more on that Renaissance festival than some TV shows I did. It's for damn sure.
Have you ever had any of these moments where, while they were happening, you realized, or you could say at that moment in the present, that this is going to be a significant moment, and not just like the birth of your child or something like that, but a moment where you felt like you could almost step out of time and I think that's what Proust is talking about here. It's like you are experiencing
I know this
in
doesn't
the present
count because it's the birth of my child, but when Jules's head came out, she was down. So she came out. Imagine my wife's legs, right?
Yeah.
She comes out. She's looking at the floor, Jules.
Okay.
So the top of her crown comes out, and then she looks up at me, and I'm on the other side, and I see her face and stacked above it, Jennifer's face, both looking at me.
Oh, no. And you saw your future. You saw your future.
Freaked me out. God, did that freak me out.
That was your future. You did see it. You stepped out of time.
I knew that no matter what I did, I was going to be a failure. There's no way that I'm equipped to handle this. The very first moment, and I'm like, I just shit my pants.
Oh my God. Everybody's looking at me.
Oh.
That the one I have is, or one that involves you, was on that trip to France where we got drunk coming into the country.
Yeah. And
then a few days later, we were in Paris and we were completely broke. We had splurged one night just to get like a full meal, and it wasn't like a fancy meal or anything. It was, I think it was probably like steak frite, which is just like a cheap steak and some French fries.
Yeah.
But we were walking back to the hostel, and we were crossing, I think it was the Pont Neuf, which is a bridge going out to the Ile de la Cité in Paris, which is the island in the middle of the Seine. And there was a beautiful full moon over the Seine. And off to the side, to the right, there was Notre Dame Cathedral. And it was such a romantic moment. And we both sort of paused and stopped looking up at it.
I remember.
And there was like, you could tell that we were both like, Jesus, I wish I was here with my girlfriend.
Yeah.
I wish I was with a woman
all of
right
this
now.
Wasted on you.
And then we both just turned and kind of quietly walked back to the hostel on our own. And it was that every time, like if I see a full moon in a city, I'm taken back to that moment of us standing there just without saying anything, just looking up at it.
Yeah. I remember.
Yeah. Yeah. Because that trip had it was a great trip. It was a frustrating trip. It had tested our friendship.
Yep. We made it.
Yeah. And at that moment, we both sort of, we had to stop and look up at that extraordinary moment of seeing the moon.
That was crazy. I still have an outstanding amends in Paris because I stole some croissants for us.
I know.
Outside the Louvre.
Good luck finding the right place there. Don't go in there trying to
I'll keep looking.
Pay for croissants everywhere. You get the wrong place.
Find it. I'll do it sometime. We should go back. That would be fun. God. Yeah.
We should go back and do episodes there.
Yes.
Hitchhike again. We'll hitchhike.
Oh God, that was horrid. Horrid.
Another thing that happens, or another theme that Proust discusses in the book, which I also love, is how our perceptions of people change with our own perspective or over time. And so like when a lot of times in the book, the narrator will meet someone when he's young, who's an adult, and he has one way of thinking about them. And then as he gets older, his perspective of them changes, or he finds out more about them. And then you see their identity that he's given them begins to change.
Mm.
And one character is Charles Swan, who's like, he's like a famous guy. He's a friend of the narrator's family. But they don't know how famous he is or how rich he is or the type of people he hangs out with. And so whenever he comes to visit them in Cambrai, they always kind of patronize him and kind of just treat him like he's a nobody, but like he's like an A-lister,
right.
in Paris.
But they just treat him like a normie.
Yeah. And then as the narrator gets older and he begins to find out all these things about Charles Swan, then Charles Swan becomes, his perspective of him or his perception of Charles Swan changes, which has always fascinated me.
Yeah, that's
and I was thinking about, you being on TV and having success on TV. Have you seen that, like how people, like when you go back home or something, how is the perception? Because you're friends with a lot of A-listers and like you.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, yes, it absolutely changes things. Absolutely. Yeah. People, I think Jim Carrey, and I'm not saying that I'm, but he said, the best part about being famous or having some sort of fame is that people act their best when they're around you.
Oh, that's interesting.
They bring out the best of themselves. I think that's kind of an interesting way of looking at it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, I've just had bursts of it, I've had the experience of it, and it's not what I thought it was going to be. It's not all that pleasant, It's not at all. It's kind of embarrassing and it's not, yeah.
When you go home, are you still are you John from Hollywood, or are you still John from growing up in Kansas City or being the?
It depends, you mean in their eyes or in my eyes?
Yeah, in their eyes.
In their eyes, yeah, it depends. It's definitely everybody. Like when I go to our high school reunion, I went to our high school reunion. Everybody knows me because they've seen me on stuff, right?
Right.
And they've seen me age. But I haven't seen them on TV, so I'm trying to figure out who everybody is, and it takes a few minutes. And when you're an idiot like me, it really does.
It's interesting you bring that up, because all of this nostalgia also last week or week before last week, that I was back in Kansas City for our 40th high school reunion.
Yes. You see how I set you up? I'm your wingman.
Yeah, you
bring you right in.
You really teed that one up for me. I wasn't expecting that. But again, talk about Proustian moments. It's the same thing with me. I haven't seen a lot of these people since high school, which has been 40 years.
Yeah.
And when you go in there, I still see them, or in my mind, they're still like 17, 18-year-old kids.
Right.
As is myself in a way.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And then it's this fascinating but unsettling moment when you see people and you make the connection, and suddenly you have to make this quick adjustment in your perception of who they were.
But like Proust, they morph. They morph because you still are seeing the young version of them,
right?
Like you sent some pictures back, or maybe a friend of ours. One anyway. I've seen a few pictures from that, and I'm like, oh my god, their essence is still right there.
Right. And fortunately, we were all wearing name tags, which would have been different. I think when you went, there were no name tags. They didn't
wear them. I couldn't believe it.
You got to have name tags.
Yeah. I just wish I had a chip in my head so that when I scanned them, their face and profile would pull up in my brain, my heads up display. God, that was rough.
It would be a few people I had to look at the name tag, and then I was like, oh yeah. And I met some people who I hadn't been friends with in high school, but that way, like looking at name tags.
One of the people from high school knew that I didn't know another person I was talking to. And he brought it up. He said, "You don't know who that is, do you?"
Oh my God.
And I was just like, "I'll tell you who he is off camera. You know."
Yeah.
I bet you
I know
who it is.
I bet you I know who it is. That's like a Proustian scene of like, why would you bring that up? You know, it's all these kind of like interactions with people.
Yeah. I called him on it afterwards. Why the fuck would you do that? Why would you do that?
Yeah, why would you
explain to me?
Yeah,
what that does for you?
I had almost talked myself out of going in. You know what I mean? There was a moment, right? Even up until because you and some our friend Frank, who is a good friend of ours, couldn't make it at the last moment.
That's right.
And I was about ready to say I'm not going to this thing.
I still wish I was there with you. I so wish it.
Yeah.
I had a last minute gig.
Right.
But you did it. Thank God you did it, because wasn't it great?
It's like I was sitting out in the parking lot, you know, thinking about going. If I still smoked, I would have been smoking at that time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I was like, fuck it. I'm going in there. I'm going in. And as soon as I got in there, it was fantastic.
Yes.
It was fantastic. I
really
would
argue that's a you that is taking a lifetime to build.
Right.
You know, the person go, fuck it, I'm going in. Like that. Yeah. You wouldn't have done that in your 20s, I don't think.
I don't think so either. 30s. I don't think in my 17s or 18s I would have been like, fuck it, I'm out of here.
Oh, you know, for sure then. Because we were the ones getting high under the bleachers somewhere.
but it was, and what was so fantastic, like you mentioned, the morph of like, once you see who the person was, even though you haven't seen them in 40 years, you could still sense them. And the connection was there. And there really wasn't a lot of reminiscing about what I was found astounding. I mean, there were some stories about like, hey, remember in so-and-so's class or something. But it was amazing that we had all of our old friends, we had progressed. We were talking about the present, what they were doing now. And it was a lot of fun. And just, I was just so happy that thankful for the people that we knew back then had such great senses of humor like we did.
Yeah.
And they still have them.
Yeah.
They still have them.
Well, I think that's where we grew up. I think there's a thing in Kansas.
Yeah.
That there's a lot of humor. I don't know. Yeah. It ran through my family. I had the same thing. I went home for my aunt's funeral and everybody's just laughing and cracking jokes. Yeah. I mean, it's just like, I don't know.
I went to a funeral too before this down in Springfield. Same thing. Everybody was laughing. Everybody was laughing down there.
Yeah.
Do you go to college reunions?
I haven't. No.
Yeah.
I haven't. I was supposed to go to one. I was in this show, this kind of famous show at Northwestern, and they had a reunion for that.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I didn't make it.
Yeah. I don't know if it would be different if a college reunion would be. I didn't stay in touch with anybody from college, really.
What about me? Oh, wait, we went to high school.
Yeah, I probably know more people from your college days.
That's true.
Just from having, moved up to Chicago after graduation from college.
Right. Yeah, I haven't stayed. I mean, you're the only friend I have, really.
Yeah.
That's lasted.
Yeah. Remember in the 80s, I mean, going back in the 80s, remember The Big Chill was a big movie at that time.
Yes.
Remember, everybody wanted to have a Big Chill reunion. We were all looking for, we hadn't reached that age yet, but everyone was looking forward to the day when we could all.
Yes. Yeah. Speaking of Kevin Costner, didn't he play the dead person?
He played the dead guy there.
Yeah. So there we full on connection.
The other one was St. Elmo's Fire. Remember that?
Yes.
It was all about like everybody wanted to have their St. Elmo's
tribe.
Fire.
And everybody did. Everybody did have their tribe coming out of college. I would, there was some sort of tribe, or they found somebody else's tribe, or, there was that.
I was a tribe of one.
Well, you joined my tribe. You came up to Chicago. Yeah.
You guys took me in. You took me in.
You were the best one.
In an article titled "The Neuroscience Behind Reunions," Ellen Diamond actually says the human brain is wired to seek social connections and form strong bonds with others.
Yes.
And she says, when we form strong relationships with others, our brains release neurotransmitters like dopamine and oxytocin.
Yeah, oxytocin. Yeah.
Which helps us feel happy and secure. And she says that, reunions can help trigger production of those. When you see a familiar face, it helps trigger like oxytocin, which is, I think it's actually called the love hormone.
Yeah, that stuff's good. Yeah, and I think that's the trick of the Facebook, is that it makes us, it gives a little bit of that. It makes us think we're connecting, but we're really not, and that's why it will ultimately destroy all of us. But we should be destroyed, really, if you think about it.
There were actually, let me see, there were two writers named Metchling and Dodds. They wrote an article about
Metchling and Dodds. Come on. Here comes Metchling and Dodds. Shh. Put the weed away.
Lauren Metchling and Rachel Dodds. Yeah, and they wrote an article called "Why Are Class Reunions So Terrifying?" And they make a good point. They say, and it's what you're talking about, is even though we have social media where we can keep in touch with people and see what they've been up to and what they're doing now, they say that reunions are among the last truly analog events in a digital world.
Well, I would argue funerals and weddings too. But yes, it's true. It's absolutely true, because we get a fraction of that dopamine hit, I imagine, when we're connecting to people online. And so we think it's the same. We trick ourselves in that it's the same, but it's not. It's without any sort of connection. No. And then they say something horrible or ghost you or dox you or whatever. And it's just like this, it hits you deep.
Right. Right. But I think there's something about traveling to see people, about showing up in person.
Yeah.
And it's, they talk about, Diamond talks about, like, maybe if this oxytocin really is released when you shake hands or hug people. And, and I found I was like hugging everybody.
Very warm person.
I was really give me that love hormone.
How did people look? How did everybody look?
Everybody looked pretty good. Actually, older. Well, a lot of gray hair, a lot of white hair.
Yeah.
But nobody really. So once I found out who they were, I could pretty much see them. But everybody looked pretty good. I thought our class kept it together.
See, I went 10 years earlier.
Yeah.
Right? Was it 10 years?
Earlier? 5 years. 5 years earlier.
And I thought the women looked great.
Yeah.
But all the guys, we all gained weight. All of them. But the women looked really good.
Some people still looked exactly the same. That was shocking.
That's true. Yeah.
Still sounded the same. It looked exactly the same.
That's weird. Yeah, it's not fair either.
Like some alien time traveler at that point. So going on to what exactly is nostalgia, in the book, The Future of Nostalgia, Svetlana Boym says that the word nostalgia comes from the Greek words nostos, which means return home, and algia, which means longing or pain. And the term nostalgia is a longing for a home that no longer exists or has never existed.
That's right. That's where we get into go back to the America that was there is none. It
didn't exist. It never existed.
Yeah.
And the term nostalgia was actually first used by the Swiss doctor Johannes Hofer in 1688. And Hofer was using the term to describe the physical and mental ailments that Swiss mercenaries felt when they left home for a long period of time.
Oh.
And Hofer said that nostalgia was, quote, sad mood emanating from the desire to return to one's native land. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
homesick.
Yeah, it's like extreme homesickness. And for a long time, nostalgia and homesickness were used synonymously up until like the Civil War, in fact. And for up until that time, doctors in Europe, at least, always felt that nostalgia, or this kind of sickness you felt by being away from home, was an actual physical illness that could be cured with opium, leeches, and, of course, returning home.
Well, that's true. But almost any ailment can be addressed with opium and leeches.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you give me an ailment that opium and leeches doesn't take care of, and I'll give you $1 because I don't think you can do it.
Let's just save time. Just forget the leeches.
Yeah.
Just get out of here quickly.
Yeah.
And
but when you're on opium, you don't care about the leeches.
Right.
You know,
that
so
really
whatever.
Is
yeah. Oh, there's some leeches? Fine. Fine.
Opium is like hitting a pause on your on your life, your memory. Your memory
bank.
I
can't remember anything.
Yeah. Boym also says that at first glance, nostalgia is a longing for a place, but actually it is a yearning for a different time. And she says nostalgia is a sentiment of loss and displacement, but it is also a romance with one's own fantasy. So again, we create what we think was the perfect time for us, even though at the time it may not have been that perfect.
Yeah. I mean, that's the way with our trip to France.
Yeah.
You know? Even the bad parts, the hard parts, I don't remember how hard they were, and they were hard.
Yeah, they sucked.
They really sucked.
Yeah. When you wake up with a huge pile of vomit right next to you.
It wasn't even a pile. It was a pool. I remember it being like 6 feet in diameter or something.
Yeah.
It was massive.
Huge.
And I looked across that, seeing the corns and the bumps in it, and because I was eye level laying down, I looked across the horizon of that vomit, and I saw you on the other side, and you shook your head like, "No, not me."
I don't think it was us. Looking back on it,
man,
we should have got a sample.
Anything? I don't remember one thing.
We both tested our mouths, and we were like, I don't think that's me. I don't think that was me. Yeah. Some stranger came up. Some sicko.
I don't know. I'm putting the money on us. We each did it at the same time, and they just met in the middle.
To produce that much. And then drunkenly we stumbled off and brushed our teeth somewhere. Boym also says that, quote, a cinematic image of nostalgia is a double exposure or a superimposition of two images, of home and abroad, past and present, dream and everyday life. The moment we try to force it into a single image, it breaks the frame or burns the surface.
I love that.
Yeah, I thought that was great. And she says it's a utopian dimension. It has a utopian dimension that is no longer directed towards the future. So we instead of like trying to make the present better, we're trying to go back and recapture the past.
We're making the past the good old days when they really weren't. I mean,
right.
Of course there were moments, but God, being in high school was rough too. It's a terrible time. You're trying to figure out who the fuck you are, and
yeah. It's and that's what's so amazing to me is, like you say, people tend to drop out all the bad. Like over time, you drop out like all the miserable, frustrating, or tedious, or awkward, embarrassing moments, and you just remember these times as being perfect, which they weren't.
You forget the grind. The grind.
Yeah.
Oh, the grind.
And I think, like we mentioned at the beginning, it's, Boym also says that nostalgists from all over the world would find it difficult to say what exactly they yearn for, because the alluring object of nostalgia is notoriously elusive.
I mean, the fact that it's familiar is probably, it's the safety of it. It's the knowing, because the fear is the not knowing. Right? The future, the not knowing. Right. Anything can happen. But the knowing, even though you're not really knowing because you're not really remembering it correctly, you've tricked your brain into the fact that you're remembering it.
Yeah. That's interesting. That's a good point about it.
And it feels safe, and you know what's going to happen, even though that never really happened, or at least not the way you're remembering it. It doesn't matter because you've tricked yourself into thinking that's how it happened.
Jesus. We're going down a rail. This is a Proustian moment.
Isn't it all so pathetically nothing? All of it. It's just a game.
But I think that's also why when, you talk about these, like Make America Great Again, when they can't really say like what time period it was, or any nostalgic, when they try to recapture what it was, like, I'm going to move back to Chicago because I was so happy there. And you go back to Chicago and it is never satisfying to go back like it was. I mean, it could be satisfying in a different way.
Is this your way of telling me I shouldn't go back to Chicago?
No. No, I'm just saying it will be a different experience. You can't recapture that because your perspective has changed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's why also when like people in political movements, when they tried to talk about nostalgia, about how things were, you can never get the same consensus of when that time was. But you can also, it's never satisfying to people. It's never good enough.
Nothing is. Nothing's satisfying.
Susan Matz, in an article titled "You Can't Go Home Again: Homesickness and Nostalgia in U.S. History," notes that the word homesickness actually became part of the English language in the 1750s. So nostalgia is a little bit older than homesickness.
It's weird that it took us that long to, I mean, what are people, so interesting.
They were obviously feeling that. We just didn't have a term for it. And
there was so much pain, it never really hit the surface. Everything was so shitty.
I know
that the last thing was on your list was being homesick.
Yeah, I think that was it, because there was a time where just being alive was like enough. You know, what else do you want? Like happiness all the time?
I was just telling you before the show, I've been doing this, listening to this podcast on the Ottoman Empire. Oh my God. What we all did to each other. Jesus.
Yeah.
Oh.
And you're going to cry about going home, or what?
That's the thing you're worried about, going home.
And then Boym notes that, nostalgia, the disease of an afflicted imagination, incapacitated the body. Longing for home exhausted the vital spirits, causing nausea, loss of appetite, pathological changes in the lungs, brain inflammation, cardiac arrest, high fever, as well as marasmus, which is just like feeling sick all the time, a little down,
a little nauseous,
and also a propensity for suicide. And so the nostalgic was possessed by a mania of longing. And so really this came about because of it was for soldiers, really, when they started treating it as like how to keep soldiers healthy when they were so homesick and nostalgic
because they're so young and they're in this horrific situation.
Right. And it was incapacitating. Like during the Civil War, you could even be put on sick leave for having nostalgia or homesickness.
Oh my God. I would be the first in line. I'd be like in a fetal position, just wanting my mommy. I mean, it's horrible when you read about that stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not built for that. You know that.
But they would, that's the reason why they would always try to keep them busy, because that was like the treatment for homesickness was to keep somebody busy.
Go dig a latrine ditch.
Yeah. They would, like, they felt like if you weren't busy, you get homesick and probably end up like masturbating somewhere.
Yeah. Don't think too much. Don't think too much. Our brains are not our friends.
Right. Shut it off. Here's some laudanum. And a leech. I'll see you tomorrow.
Like we said, opium and leeches, it'll treat anything.
Take care of it.
Take care of it. Yep.
Interesting. Boym says that doctors in the 16 and 1700s also noted that the nostalgic, the person with nostalgia, had an amazing capacity for remembering sensations, tastes, sounds, smells, the minutiae and trivia of the lost paradise that those who remained at home never noticed.
Right. Yup. That's right. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Everybody else is like, what?
Yeah, like, what? That old toilet out there? What are you talking about that you're out there wanting to, like, sit in it for a while? I found that when I worked for the Italian Tourist Board, that would happen a lot too, is that people would come back from Italy, and they had gone over expecting, hearing all the stories that their great-grandparents or grandparents had told about, like, the little carts with the burros and, and the mandolin music,
Right.
and they go over and they come back
Burger King.
Right. They'd be disappointed because it was too modern. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And it's like, well, in order for your nostalgic memory to exist, everybody else's life has to stop.
Yes.
Yes. I mean? That's not going to happen.
No.
I also had a friend who was from Ireland who talked about the same thing. And I met her in Los Angeles, and she was telling me that, every summer there's some American will come crawling over her dad's fence and running across his field and stop him on his tractor to say that they're distantly related to him.
Right. Right. He's like, okay, great. Another American.
I know. And she said her dad was always kind of put out about it because they expect him to be like he was back in, like it was back in the 1850s. Or something. It's like her dad's running a business.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And he's got to stop his
American.
business.
Go get me a pack of cigarettes, would you?
She said it's always so bad because they want to be invited into the house for tea or a drink or something. Her dad's
our long lost. Right. Yeah, they're like leprechauns or something.
Yeah.
Like, no. We're having rice-a-roni for dinner, too.
We're ordering out. We're getting pizza and Chinese, you know what I mean? Getting a curry. It's like and Boym notes that the danger of nostalgia is that it tends to confuse the actual home and the imaginary one. In extreme cases, it can create a phantom homeland for the sake of which one is willing to die or kill.
Right.
And she quotes the writer Michael Kamen, who said, "Nostalgia is essentially history without guilt. Heritage is something that infuses us with pride rather than with shame."
Yes.
Yeah.
For us to be patriotic, just full on, you've got to forget a lot of stuff.
Right. And
I don't know. I feel like you can be patriotic with something that's broken or something that's not perfect. I mean, what's wrong with that? I don't know. I mean, I find something that's not perfect to be like more real. Like, I don't know. I like that. I like my heroes to not be perfect. I like them to be, because I
find it, and I think it's what you're saying. I love seeing that it's a work in progress. That it's not a work that's been finished. And we're still working on it, and we've made corrections as it's gone, and it's not perfect yet, but we'll get there. But if you start saying we need to go back in time, it's like you've already done a bunch of work on your house, and now it's like, well, let's tear down this part of the house.
New part. Yeah, you're right.
The part that we fixed and go back to where it was broken.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah. Plus, if this podcast has taught me anything, looking back in the history of anthropology, and is that, man, we're doing pretty good. We've come a long way.
Yeah,
as a species.
Like, let's not go back.
No,
let's not go back.
Let's not go back. It's not pretty back then.
No. There's a reason why we advance beyond that.
Yeah.
They talk about in the Civil War, again, it was like this homesickness or nostalgia was a really was a problem, and they thought it could really incapacitate an army or incapacitate soldiers. And what they said is, like we said, they should keep them busy, for one thing, and also, they should deny furloughs for them because
it makes it worse.
But apparently it was a real problem. But I'm thinking when you go to Civil War reenactors and stuff, you don't
see that part so much. People crying for their mommy. Yeah.
I'm a reenactor who's a homesick. I'm going to be like laying here in my bed,
I do that. I play that guy. I don't want to be here. This sucks.
I want to play the guy with chronic dysentery. I'll be like over in the latrine. That's my reenactor character. I think I could do that really well. Just real quick, Boym also says that there's two main types of nostalgia. One's restorative nostalgia, which we see with political groups. and one's reflective nostalgia. And restorative nostalgia puts emphasis on nostos, which is that return home, and proposes to rebuild the lost home and patch up the memory gaps. Whereas reflective nostalgia dwells in algia, or the longing and lost. And it's the imperfect process of remembrance. And so she says the first one, and I think we see this a lot now with political groups, the first category of nostalgics, which are the restorative nostalgics, do not think of themselves as nostalgic. They believe that their project is about truth. This kind of nostalgia characterizes national and nationalist revivals all over the world, which engage in the anti-modern myth-making of history by means of a return to national symbols and myths, and occasionally through swapping conspiracy theories.
Yeah. But I get it. I get it. It'd be great if it was like that. It'd be great.
Right.
But it isn't. It wasn't.
Yeah.
And that sucks. That sucks that it wasn't. And that we remember it in this weird, it's just like it's back to trusting your brain. You just can't trust your brain. You've got to be a cynic when it comes to your own processing, which is really hard.
Yeah. Yeah, because we make mistakes. I got news for you. We make mistakes in how we perceive something even when we were living through it. I mean, you did 2 amends to different schools that you thought
Isn't that great?
were the same school. You know what I mean?
I know.
And that's sort of the past, I think.
Yeah.
We imagine it to be one thing when it wasn't.
We misremember.
Yeah.
Crazy.
All right. So, John, just again, any periods that you'd like to go back to in your life?
No.
That's the same with me.
Nope.
That's the same with me. Things suck right now, but I still would not want to go back into the past and relive the past.
I don't regret it, but I don't want to go back either.
Yeah.
I'm ready. Let's just keep this thing going. Keep it going.
The ultimate 80s cruise. We're just going to keep going forward. Keep going forward. Have you ever felt homesick, like really homesick?
Yes.
Like went to college,
my freshman year of college, I was homesick. I never left I grew up in the house, lived my whole life in one house with my brother in the same room. And suddenly I was in Northwestern around all these rich kids and entirely different perspective. And I was definitely homesick. But then I found marijuana and it made it all good.
You can take that with you. Let the army start prescribing that.
Yeah.
Nostalgics. I always find it's the same way. I mean, at the time I always had, it seems like I always left relationships. So I'd always get really homesick for women I was in a relationship with at the time.
Well, you were such a romantic, and
I was like Proust and Baudelaire, That's the cruise I should do, is like a Proust Baudelaire cruze.
But you're with the best one. I mean, I've been around almost all of them, or a lot of them at least. 90% safely.
And the journey, you had to get there. You had to get there,
And now you got married. Fantastic. And now you just stay together until you kick.
Just the race to death. Sprint to death. That's going to be on our coffee cups, like refrigerator magnets on our website. So I guess, John, I guess I would say that the past was messy and miserable. It's as messy and miserable as the present is.
Mm-hmm.
And like any relationship, our relationship with the past is going to take honesty, communication, and compromise for all of us, because we're not experiencing the same present, let alone the same past, and we can't make it just happen. I guess is what I'm saying.
Well said. This is human number 2 signing off.
And this is Human Number 1. Thank you for listening, everybody. And thank you to Mary for this week's topic, nostalgia.
And a whole lot of other things, too. Thank you, Mary.
A whole lot of other things. I have a friendship bracelet with Human Number 3 on it.
Oh.
And also, I want to say thank you to all of our classmates who I saw at the reunion last week. And and I'll name off. I'm just going to give their first names because, in case they don't want to be associated with this podcast.
Good,
but they know who they are. But,
good thinking.
Spencer, Claire, Chris, Bill, Gene, Brian, Brad, Cheryl, Tim, Laura, Ken, Randy, Jeff, Tim, another Tim, Greg, and anybody else whose name escapes me. Thank you so much.
Oh my God! Just reading those names sent me on a Proustian rabbit hole. I know those people.
I know.
That's great. That's great.
I love you guys. It was
Go
so
Vikings.
Fantastic. Go Vikings. Go Vikings. I want to be buried in a traditional Viking funeral out in. Send me in the ship.
Yeah, but we gotta shoot that arrow out at you.
I know.
Yeah, no, I know what I'm doing with you already. I've got it worked out. I'm gonna stuff you, put you in.
Talk to Spencer. See if Spencer can organize that. Get everybody together for.
None of us have the archery skills to get that done.
Just get some stirred up, just some lighter fluid right before you send me.
We could do a drone maybe and crash a drone in there.
I love it.
dip a drone in gasoline, light it on fire, and just drive it into your raft.
Perfect. I just want put me in like a paper mache Viking boat, and then push me out into Shawnee Mission Lake.
What was that terrible? Yeah, what was that? Was that Shawnee Mission Lake? Was that lake that was near your house, or all the frogs were on 87th or something? What was that?
South Lake Park.
Yeah, we'll float you out there.
All right, guys, we love you. Don't forget to check out our sponsor, Watson & Company Socks, for a truly nostalgic feeling of historical leggings, I guess.
Yeah, your heels will be transported back in time.
A simpler time where it was all about comfort.
When heels were just always felt good.
All right, John, I love you. I love you guys. Thanks for listening. Talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.